Today's September 20th, 2000. We're going to talk mishmash.
Mishmash, that's always good, mishmash.
Yeah, so how you been doing, Jodar?
Oh, I'm just hanging in there. I know that a lot of people don't hear us anymore, but we are still around. We're here, and
Yes, we are.
we want to let people know we're here, and hopefully they will listen to us.
Yeah, we jibber jabber pretty well, and we've still been digging. We haven't stopped at all.
No, we are digging. We never stop digging. That's our middle names.
Yeah, actually, we lose a lot of sleep because we're still digging.
So what did you want to start with?
Well, we can either start with what's latest in the news, or we can. I wanted to make sure we mentioned something about Netanyahu and his election.
Okay. Okay, so the last that I heard is that it is a very close race, but it still has to be decided, I do believe. What did you hear?
Yeah, well, I all mainly what I've been paying attention to is how much he's been throwing his running mate under the bus. Lately coming out with all the software that he was involved in. How do you say his name? Ehud Barrak?
Uh, Ehud, E-
Ehud.
Ehud Barak.
Right. Ehud Barak. And he is the former prime minister of Israel, right?
He is the former prime minister. Yes, uh huh.
Yeah, well, you know, um, there was quite a few articles that have come out, and actually Whitney Webb was one of them that had written and mentioned him quite a bit, how he was involved in installing several Israel people into our governments that were sort of a double agent. They were from the 8200 military from Israel, and they had been involved in putting back doors into our systems and software like this Carbyne 911.
Absolutely. Yeah, Carbyne 911, which is a creation from Ehud Barak.
Yeah, and how scary does that software sound to think? And the states in some of these counties are getting grants right now to join.
County. If you're looking for, to update your 911 system, they will give you money to do that, but you have to put in the Carbyne 911 system, which has lots of back doors to find out where people. Uh, it gets very detailed as far as location, as far as information being given out. As a matter of fact, they're saying that this particular system can um, tell you exactly where mass shootings would start.
Right. That's the pretense that they're actually using to sell it to countries or counties, cities. They are saying that it's going to help alleviate mass shootings. And so what I understand is they're going to put sensors and wearable devices initiated calls to 911. So you won't even have to call 911 in order to get a hold of the service to let them know there's an emergency. There'll be microphones set around the cities that will alert them to certain audible noises. And then I also heard another thing that they were going to use the Carbine for, the presidential alert that we got to on our phones back in October of 2018. There was a rumor at the time, it was only from 1 or 2 people, but they had said, "Do not take that emergency alert, turn off your phones," because what it is an actual upload to your phone, and that's because when the systems came out, it had not been downloaded to the new phone to the phones that were already out. So what it did was it allowed a backdoor if you accepted or you hit okay when you got the alert, it caused a backdoor to your device, which would give Carbyne the ability to turn on your microphone or your camera and say that you were in a vicinity of an alert that they received. Then they would be able to access your device and listen or watch through it. Now, if you called 911, and they at the time could ask you, do they have permission? But they don't need that permission from you. So I'm looking at their website. It's Carbyne. It's Carbyne 911.com. And it gives a little more information on there, of course, but it says from smart city sensors to wearable and device initiated calls to 911, Carbyne is bringing more and more actionable information to public safety and combining it with voice and forming a powerful unified queue.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's
some heavy stuff.
it is, it's scary because it's taking away our privacy is what that is going to do.
Yes, it is going to take away the privacy. As a matter of fact, they're going to know just about, wow, where they're going to know just about where you're standing at in your own house. It's
That's
going to
what I
get that
hear.
deep.
Mhm. Yeah, and to think they're really, promoting this, and the thing is this is from an Israel company. This is our government going hand in hand with another country, willing to monitor us. So what is that about?
It's all about control, how much
Yeah.
they can control us, controlling the masses. Um, it's getting much more serious. People have to wake up to what's going on here.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's been in the works for a long time, several generations.
Yes, I believe that. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, and so what I this kinda got me started, on to looking into more, which, yeah, TD had been on Inferno's channel on his radio show, and she had mentioned about Palantir, and she said it was like, Majority Report, but so I've been looking at these spy softwares, and there was Promise, which, that's pretty old software, that was back from Iran-Contra days, um, and that was put in the back door of our government computers without us being aware of it. I think some people in the government were aware of it. And then there's Palantir, and then Visilo. There's Inslaw, that's Inslaw. There's Black Cube, then the Carbine 911, LibTAD, that's Libtad, IQT, Phantom Secure, and Kinetic, which Kinetic is a military grade. Um, oh, what's the word? They just did their Jordan with United States. They just did their Jordan last weekend. It was for 2 weeks. We'll get into that in a little bit further along.
And funny you should mention Black Cube. Black Cube is a Israeli security company that
Yep.
Harvey Weinstein hired to investigate all of these women that were you know blaming
Oh,
him for some of the things that yeah, some of the things that he was doing or that they were accusing him of doing, the Me Too girls. But he had extensive uh, you know uh, investigations done on them through Black Cube, who is an Israeli security company.
that's right. I think I remember something about that.
So, speaking of Carbyne, the board of directors are very interesting on Carbyne, which is Ehud Barrak, who is right now in a tie uh,
Netanyahu.
Netanyahu, yeah, Netanyahu for Israeli prime minister, and he was a prior prime minister. But this guy is a little seedy. He has some things that have been following him that are a little shady for some time, and he is the chairman and investor on the board of directors for Carbyne. Also, there is another person that is on the board of directors, Nicole Junkerman. Now, Nicole Junkerman is tied into Epstein.
Really?
Oh,
Small world.
yes.
A small world.
She's tied into Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell, who was one of the handlers of Epstein, who
Right.
helped recruit a lot of the women for Epstein.
Well, this circle just keeps on coming back around to the other end of its tail, doesn't it?
It's a finely tuned web that is just keeps weaving and never stops. It has, but these people are seem to be reusable. You hear them a long time ago, and then they come back through another way. They're in there.
Right. I just don't understand how all this has been allowed to go on. And there had to have been a lot more cooperation within our government than we realize.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking of some of the things that have been happening, let's talk a little bit about Epstein and some of the which Epstein seems to be the keystone. He seems to
Okay.
be the
But
main block.
before we go too far though, I want to make sure that we mention that Peter Thiel is involved with that Ehud Barak. Ehud? Is that how you say it? Ehud?
Ehud, yeah,
Yeah.
Peter Thiel is involved with his program.
Right, which is also involved in the Palantir.
Right, right.
Yeah, let me make the Carbyne thing a little more clear since I do have a note here that I wanted to make sure that I kept in. It says Carbyne 911. Uh, let's see, its close association and former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, and Silicon Valley venture capitalist and prominent Trump backer Peter Thiel. Carbyne 911, or simply Carbyne, develops call handling and identification capabilities for emergency response services in countries around the world, including the United States, where it has already been implemented in several U.S. counties and has partnered with major U.S. tech companies like Google. It specifically markets its product as a way of mitigating mass shootings in the United States without having to change existing U.S. gun laws. Yet Carbyne is no ordinary tech company. It is deeply connected to the elite Israeli military intelligence.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out military intelligence comes up a lot when it has the word Israel next to it.
Well, save Israel for last.
We have heard that, haven't we?
Yes, we have. So, shall we go into Epstein a little bit?
Yes, he's a very high topic, isn't he?
He is, because everything seems to be like we said. He's the keystone, and everything seems to evolve from Epstein. So,
And I know as further time goes on in our podcast, because we do plan on doing more, we'll be mentioning several of these people. It's unbelievable where the story ends ending up actually because of the fact that this wasn't just a pedophile. This was actually what some of us are believing was a spy, and he was um, helping to train people to infiltrate our government so that they could blackmail our politicians and they could be involved in our foreign affairs. And that is very unfortunate. And that's why we believe this man has died, is because he was too much of an asset to come forward with any information he may have had. And so we have Prince Andrew that was involved with him, Sarah Ferguson, Pete Townsend, Alan Dershowitz, Robert De Niro, Naomi Campbell, Woody Allen. Let's see. There's Courtney Love, Bryan Singer, Cyrus Vance, Leslie Geoff, Sarah Kalin Vickers. Um, you got any names you want to throw in there? Prince Charles, Ghislaine Maxwell, Naomi.
not to mention a whole bunch of politicians and
A
a whole
lot.
and a whole bunch of Hollywood stars, and it goes on forever.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And
And
so,
so if we tell the people what was the basic priority of this huge conglomerate that Jeffrey Epstein had, would be basically it was for blackmail purposes.
Well, and there was, drugs that were involved in transfer of money and human trafficking, training, pilots to go back and forth with those items, and he had, 2 locations, the ranch, the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, and then he had the not just the, St. James Island, but we also believe he was possibly involved in his with 2 labs on the Zorro Ranch. There was some type of, genetics going on there. He had some odd beliefs.
Yes, as a matter of fact, he felt that he could populate the world, and some one of his sick um, thoughts that he thought he could do was he could impregnate a lot of these women, and that he would just, you know, uh, populate the world with people with his specific genes. So he was into genetics, and this was a serious thing. This there were some serious genetic experiments going on over at Zorro Ranch.
Right, and we forgot 2 very big names, and that's Bill Richardson and Bill Clinton.
Yes. And Bill Richardson, who was a prior governor of New Mexico, has a lot to do with it. And not just that, but Bill Richardson is also a board member on Genie Energy. And Genie Energy just won the drilling rights, or I should say, the rights for to produce electricity in the Golan Heights area of Israel.
Yeah, there's that word again, Israel. We're going to be hearing a lot of Israel coming out of our mouths when it comes to this whole gamut that Epstein was involved with.
Oh, and don't forget, on the board with Richardson, which a big investor in that was Epstein, and dear Vice President Cheney.
Well, there's a name we don't seem to hear too often, but he should be. He's always in the background. He has been for how many decades now? Since at least nine
Oh,
11 2001.
I'll say.
Mhm.
But going back just a little bit here regarding Israeli intelligence, Israeli intelligence, I think the one thing that it's all about is blackmail. And a lot of that blackmail comes from our Silicon Valley. They are using our Silicon Valley for their nefarious purposes of blackmail. And you see it all: Facebook, Twitter, uh, Google, all part of trying to extract, uh, intelligence, and trying to extract our privacy.
Right, and that's where we kind of began, and these are subjects that we are definitely going to be staying on. We're very interested in it. Now to some little more current news, because I know this is a topic that you in the past have mentioned and stayed right on top of, and that's Ed Buck.
Oh, Eddie Bucky, yes. As a matter of fact, I don't know if anybody got to see today's little clip of Ed Buck and his bond hearing. My God, I would say if anybody knows what a tweaker looks like, that's Ed. That's Ed Buck. Ed Buck looks like he needs maybe a shot of what he's been giving
Oh,
these boys.
he's having withdrawals, you think? Well, let's step back for a second and tell him what happened on Wednesday to little Ed Buck.
Well, Ed Buck, he's been doing pretty much what Ed Buck wants to do. Ed Buck had previously Ed Buck. Well, first of all, let me just say that he is a activist in the LGBTQ community, a very very prominent activist. He is a Democratic donor. He's got lots and lots of money, and he gives to all of the Democrat buddies, especially out there in California. Good buddy friend to Adam Schiff and Ted Lieu and Nancy Pelosi, and they all love Ed Buck, especially Hillary Clinton. Now, Ed Buck's had a little bit of, some bad luck lately. Within the last, I would say, 2 years, Ed Buck's had some unfortunate things happen at in an apartment complex. Looks like he's rented kind of a seedy little apartment in the West Hollywood area, and I don't think this is where Ed Buck lives. I think this is where Ed Buck does his lab work at. Um, and what he does is he gets, he trolls. Especially, he's very close to Sunset Boulevard because I think it's on Laurel, and I know the area pretty well. It's close to Sunset. So Sunset Boulevard has a lot of male prostitutes, homeless guys. Ed loves black men. That's his thing. So he gets these guys and he brings them to his love nest. And what he does there is sexual satisfaction. Uh, and
Well, he
he
gets them
also
high. He gets them
and he
high
gets him.
first.
Yeah, he gets them high. He shoots them up with methamphetamine, and he also, from what I've been reading, he gives them a drink that uh, they think that it's vodka, but what it is, it's something that's enabling, that is making their muscles. They cannot move their muscles. They can't move at all. So it's some sort of drug that does that.
Synfax, I think is what I heard. Yeah,
Yeah,
it makes them paralyzed.
yeah, it makes
But they're
them paralyzed. They can't move. But and then if they happen to go to sleep, or they go off, then he shoots them up with a methamphetamine. Also, he puts these metal clips on their nipples, and then he does something to them anally, and leaves them bleeding. And so two black guys, one who was a young guy in his 20s, and then
prostitutes.
yeah, prostitutes, and then another one who was in his 50s, were both died of an overdose
Uh,
in this apartment. And he was never held accountable for this. But what had happened last week is that he does the same thing again. He got another young black man there, and he did the same thing to him, but he didn't die. So Ed Buck, looks like later that day or earlier the next day, was arrested, finally was arrested for running a drug den. And what are the other charges?
well, holding them against their will. When I read the, article, I noticed that there are people that are watching Ed's apartment, and they actually have a photo of that, person going into his apartment, which is number 17, going in there with a huge package of paper towels and a huge package of toilet paper. That seemed a little odd.
Yeah, well, here's the interesting thing, that what he does, he brings these men in here. He, like what I said to you previously, what he does to for the sex play. But then when he's done, he wants him out. But the
Yeah.
problem with this last one is that because he immobilized him, the man couldn't move. His muscles were, he
Yeah, he
he
was
could he
paralyzed.
was paralyzed. So what Ed Buck did is he went in, he got a chainsaw.
Oh my lord.
He got a chainsaw and said, "You're going to get out of here." And the guy miraculously, found a way to move. Because someone coming at you with a chainsaw, you're going to move. And they called the police on this guy, on Ed Buck. And this is what got it all started.
Yeah, well, I read that he, went down the street, and then shortly after that, police came looking for him and were asking and questioning people all along the pathway if they had seen him. They were trying to find him, but it was my understanding they did not.
Right, because Ed Buck Ed Buck was the one that called the police on this guy, because he was saying that the guy was trying to rob him. Okay. Well, Ed Buck pays off the West Hollywood sheriffs. You know, they know him
Right.
well, they stick up for him. So they couldn't get out of this. When they found this guy and they found his injuries, they found what has happened. The district attorney couldn't buy her way out of this or sell her way or talk her way out of this.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it this time.
Right. The man's 65 years old. You would think he would stop some of these games that he's playing.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, maybe methamphetamine helps a 65-year-old along. I thought it was the little blue pill that did that. I don't know.
Well, I'm telling you, this world is crazy. Yeah,
So I'm gonna read just a little bit about very short little synopsis here
yeah, go
about
ahead.
uh, the story itself. I can't tell you how many of Buck's victims have told me about how and when he's done this when he calls the sheriffs on him. This thing, with the chainsaw, and just like before, the sheriffs come out and they do Buck's bidding, and then they send these young men away. So the young guy was last seen walking on Laurel Avenue towards Santa Monica Boulevard. So not long after that, the sheriffs did this. Another set of deputies came back and started driving up and down Laurel Avenue, asking neighbors and people on the street if they saw a black man walking and which way did he go.
Right.
Hold on, and then so not let's see, once again, the sheriffs had a witness, a victim of Ed Bucks, and instead of trying to be helpful, they treated him like a suspect. And I don't know if they ever found him, but from what I saw by the time I got there, and this is an eyewitness to that, that they were looking for him pretty seriously. Now, for all I know, Ed Buck told them that he stole something, and for all I know, he could be in custody right now. I do not know that we I do know that we drove ourselves uh, around looking for him and we didn't find him. So
Themselves, right.
yeah, so she's saying in sharing this with you because I want you to know how the sheriffs are mishandling this case. They removed a young man from Ed Buck's apartment because he wanted him gone and never once thought to himself, "Hey, maybe we need to talk to this guy about our active homicide cases here."
Right. Well, they say he's held without bond and he's awaiting arraignment. And the criminal charges are maintaining a drug house, state, battery causing serious injury, state, administering methamphetamine, state, and distribution of methamphetamine resulting in death is federal.
And also, I do believe human trafficking.
Oh,
Yes, human trafficking got added to that. Let me just tell you, because these victims are nameless, but I want to put names to the ones that the deaths were Jamel Moore and Timothy Dean, who died in this man's apartment. The 65-year-old pervert that has more money than God, and that's how he can get away with it.
yeah. Right. Well, and in 2019, a coalition of 50 civil rights organizations called for law enforcement to investigate this matter. And then on September 17th of this year, Buck was arrested and charged with 3 counts of battery causing serious injury and administering methamphetamines and maintaining a drug house. So hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have some type of justification for those poor victims.
And I would like to put a question out to Black Lives Matter. I'd like to put a question out to all these, these
Activists.
activists and these victims, these that say that we're that it's. I mean, here is your classic white supremacy.
Yeah. Stand up
Here,
for their community.
where have you been to try, to find some kind of justice for these two black men that have died? Where have you been calling for justice? Why haven't there been riots for this? Why is there such silence? Because they're black, because they're homeless, because they were possibly prostitutes. Is that the reason, or does that even matter? I mean, where is the justice for these victims that actually were lured in because A, they don't have any money, and B, they're probably homeless. So they're desperate. Number one, they're desperate, and they're going to try to get whatever money they can. I mean, that's what prostitutes usually do. But they were used beyond repair. They were used for. I personally think Ed Buck is a serial killer. I
You
think
might
this
be right.
is I think this is a form of him being a serial killer. Now, when they showed the clip of him today, please, if you can find Ed Buck's, just Google or go on YouTube, Ed Buck's bond hearing. His bond is $4 million. Okay, now I have a guess he's going to make that bond, but is he a flight risk? Of course he would be a flight risk. But if you were to seen this guy, oh, by the way, he was wearing a bulletproof vest. What did he need a bulletproof vest for?
Wow. Yeah, I haven't seen Al Sharpton say anything about this lately.
Not a word out of L. Sharpton. Not a word.
Well, our listeners, I hope you've enjoyed this small segment that Jodar and Penelope have given you. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because we plan on coming back.
Yeah, and I mean, excuse us for maybe some little interruptions, or it didn't little bumps, little burps along the way. This is the first time we've done this, so we plan probably to get a lot more polished, and bear with us, but I know some of you have missed us. We miss you. We miss you so much, and I hope that you will come back, because I'll tell you, we got a lot of things to talk about, and we're here to educate, and we need you to educate us as well. So I hope that you will listen to us, and we can all talk again, because we miss you all.
Yeah. Stay hungry for more.